Welcome back to the Iceberg Mountain podcast. We're really excited to talk about artificial intelligence, specifically how that fits in learning and what's the optimal situation within education to embed AI.
Yeah, and we had the opportunity recently to go to a conference with a group of Apple Distinguished Educators. It was firstly amazing to connect with friends again, and hopefully we'll talk about that in a podcast soon. But on top of that, obviously there's a great focus around AI, particularly in regard to tech tools, but in education in general. And so we had the opportunity to listen to not only people from our region who are working with AI in a more kind of on-the-ground way in schools. In particular, we had the opportunity to talk to Dr. Shaun Kirkwood, who is an international expert on the development of AI and its use in education. And having someone like this that has a more holistic an understanding of how people are using it in different contexts was really inspiring, really got us thinking about the opportunities associated with AI as opposed to just thinking about what the costs are or what the negatives might be along the way.
So first, let's talk about the importance of AI within our world today. Dr. Saba shared some statistics, and it showed that in education, 66% of educators and school leaders worry about cheating when it comes to AI. But then also, at the same time, in enterprise, 66% of leaders say that they wouldn't hire someone without AI skills. So there is this conflict between education and enterprise that I think we need to talk about and deal with.
Yeah. And again, this comes back to what we talk about often in a podcast is that idea of where do we find that match between maybe curriculum needs that are quite old contextually and the needs of a changing business and societal environment.
That just got me thinking, like, what are some of the jobs in the future that, or maybe even currently, that are really high in demand? And so just Googling some resources I found in Singapore, where we're at, two of them involved artificial intelligence. One being AI engineers, who basically they bridge the gap between data science models and then real world applications. So they're the ones who actually design these tools so that we can take data and actually do something with it. And then there's AI researchers or scientists who basically take those tools, extract valuable insights from the data to then drive some business solutions.
And then maybe thinking about that, just to try and contextualize it into a school situation where we have opportunities to use AI right now to improve the experience for our users and stakeholders, being students and parents. One of the examples, the first examples that Dr. Saba shared with us was a product called HeyGen. And HeyGen is kind of amazing because what it will do is, one of the examples she showed was its ability to translate language on the fly and create a video of you speaking in multiple languages. So like, for instance, we could deliver this podcast and then have it translated into Chinese or into Spanish or into any other language that they support. And the video coming out, the lip sync is perfect and it essentially looks like you're speaking the other language.
Y lo que podría significar para ti, tanto a nivel personal como en la escuela.
Y estoy realmente emocionado de hacer esto porque creo que tenemos dos perspectivas diferentes.
So when I think about that as a use case in our school situation, think about the idea that you're developing some important message for your school and you need to communicate it to all your stakeholders, particularly in an international setting where you have people from a variety of language backgrounds, as opposed to just issuing that out in one language in English and maybe people do or do not understand it entirely. Being able to contextualize it for them and put it in their language so that they can see and hear it, I think that's a really powerful moment in technology and in history where now all of a sudden everyone is getting the same message and hopefully it would make school communication change, all those things a little bit more efficient than what it is now.
And more equitable.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So HeyGen also has the capability of creating an avatar for you so that it can attend your own meetings. The demo videos were just astonishing and kind of scary, but we have to think to ourselves, these are the things that our students who are maybe in kindergarten, when they become adults and attend meetings, that might be a norm. And so it's just another indication that we definitely need to be talking about AI in education.
And I think in regard to this, I feel like when we're at the PD, this was one of the things we talked about a lot that was kind of controversial in some ways that got people really thinking. I think back to your point, David, we do need to talk about what AI is, what it can do, what it shouldn't be able to do, all of those things, so that rather than just saying we're not going to use it because kids are going to cheat with it, we do need to look at what is possible and what's not possible, and then think through the ramifications of our decisions moving forward, because it's not going anywhere. It's only going to get more powerful, and we need to think about how we can use it that way.
But what we're finding in education in regards to AI is the topic of cheating. And that seems to be like the top priority for schools. And understandably. But luckily, Dr. Saba actually got to visit our school and do a little session. I got to sit down with Patrick Holt. It was really interesting because he was saying that we're kind of repeating what we did with iPads and apps, in the sense of the mental model of education didn't change. And all we did was place these iPads and apps into that mental model. The mental model in the traditional view of education is seen more about you're giving knowledge to students and then they're kind of soaking that in, whereas the evolved mental model of education might be where students have more of a personalized learning situation. They have opportunities to really critically think and create solutions through a creative process and really focus on that lifelong learning.
So, if I was to build onto that, I think about the idea of like the SAMA model, where we talked about substitution, augmentation, modification, and redefinition. Mm-hmm. And we're really in that substitution phase with AI right now. And how that looked with iPads was, here's a digital worksheet instead of a worksheet. With AI right now, we're just looking at like, how can I make the AI write me a paragraph to put in an essay? That's what's kind of getting people concerned, when there are a whole host of other things that it can do. And I think that's what we want to talk about today, is what are the other parts of AI that we can use to improve our schools and also therefore the learning of our students.
If we're in a traditional class, you would have students read a specific chapter and then maybe work on a worksheet, practice multiple times, have a quiz, and then take the test. Within that model, and you try to incorporate AI, or students try to incorporate AI, then cheating seems to be the topic. The conversation I got with Patrick was that we need to really flip things around. We need to flip the mental model of education first before we can actually talk about what does AI look like in learning. And that kind of leads to this report that Dr. Saba talks about, creativity in learning. It has great statistics about how important creativity is. For example, 87% of teachers and 77% of parents agree that creativity-focused teaching yields better outcomes. Creativity enhances critical skills like problem solving, critical thinking, and self-confidence. But also there was data that both parents and teachers value project-based learning over traditional approaches, but standardized assessments remain dominant. This report I really enjoyed because it just shows you that creativity with technology can't happen unless you have flipped that mental model of education, where you have more project-based activities, where you are talking about a broader impact, real-world applications, personalization and ownership of the learning, and then actual skill development, the competencies that schools talk about a lot. So once you have that mental model, then I think conversation about AI being part of the learning becomes more robust and more exciting.
And one of the big things that Dr. Saba talked about was the idea of creating your own AI team. So she actually used ChatGPT to do this, and I thought it was kind of wild. If I could hire an AI team, I would want it to be able to do this, this, and this task so that I can then do this. So for instance, that might look like, I would like an AI team that can put together a math provocation that is achievable by students who are aged between 5 and 12. It's to do with the environment. I want to do this so that I can provide a challenging math activity for students of all ages on the same day. Then with a secondary prompt, you can basically say to the AI, tell me what it is that I need to do and tell me what it is that you're going to do in order for this outcome to arrive. What I loved about that was the sort of things that the AI will tell you is, okay, you're going to need to communicate to a team that this is happening. I will create the provocation. You need to talk to the students about what's going to happen with this. I will provide all maybe the resource material that they're going to reference for the activity. And so breaking it down into what do you do and what can it do takes away the notion that like you just put everything into the machine and then you sit back and relax and do nothing. That you still have a job, you have a purpose, and it can be a higher level purpose than just creating an essay and then submitting it and the cheating kind of path that we talked about before.
Yeah, I love it. And this connects with a conversation I had at the conference with Frederick Yu. an amazing educator, who was sharing that he would equip students with this AI team so that they can work on a passion project or a project-based learning experience and use that AI team to do the same thing. I think that's really powerful because now you have an AI team that can help the students make whatever they're thinking tangible and actually make it happen.
I think the other thing that I like about it too is there is still a job there for you to do. It's just that with using the AI, it means you can focus more on the important parts of it. So for instance, that example, contextualizing it to your circumstance, making sure that it makes sense to your community, what you're doing. But then all the things like figuring out like what resources you need, or even the provocation itself, you don't necessarily need to come up with that, and that takes a long time to do. If you can use AI to get you to where you need to be a bit quicker, that's the whole purpose of it. When we talked to Steve McGinnis, who's a marketing professional, he had mentioned that the way he uses AI is to get to wrong quicker. And I think that's another kind of headspace that we can get into, is that we can use AI to prototype a heap of different examples and ideas, work out which ones are wrong real fast, which ones are kind of right, and then develop them and massage them so that they really, contextually for our students in our community, they can fit much better than what they would if they were just out of a program or just, you know, your own thinking by yourself without consulting another resource.
I think anytime there's a job that requires projects, I think AI can help with that. And so it's not going to take over your job. You're just now using AI to help you with tasks that you had to do, but now you can allocate it to AI. And you could be more productive, right?
One of the frameworks that Dr. Saba has actually developed herself with her team is a framework called Spark. And the idea behind it is it's helping teachers to develop a prompt that will help them provide the most efficient feedback from AI to develop really high quality teaching resources. And the way this works is it's an acronym, and so it starts out with, so Spark, the S in Spark is situation, basically describing where you're at. So like, I'm in an elementary school, I'm teaching science, whatever the standards are that you're going to use, the topics, those sort of things. The problem, so what is your problem? Like, I need to develop a provocation for the students to get engaged at the start of the semester, at the end of the semester, as a summative unit, whatever it happens to be. Your aspiration that, you know, you want your kids to have a deep engagement or conduct research, or you want them to have a hands-on activity, anything like that, what you aspire for your kids to create. And then the R in Spark is for results. What do you want to get at the end? What would you like to achieve with the students? And then K is for Kismet. And Kismet is really just the idea that these are like 3 or 4 ideas that are just maybe different and will spark some creativity and energy in the unit. And it's not something you have to put in, but that's something that the AI will provide you and help you with along the way.
Yeah, and I got to actually use the Spark GPT tool that she shared with. And my prompt was basically create a cohesive school identity that strongly integrates project-based learning, design thinking, and inquiry-based learning. And it provided a list of strategies that can help me do that at a school, so which was really cool.
We can't recommend highly enough looking into what Dr. Saba Kidwai is doing at the moment. Her research is really easy to get involved with. It's practical and it offers you ideas for using them directly in your situation straight away. If you want to find out more about her work, you can go to designingschools.org and just check it out, see what sort of things are there.
Yeah, and I recommend getting her book as well. It's also called Designing Schools. And her YouTube channel is pretty legit. It's pretty awesome. All right, so until next time, be the iceberg
And climb your mountain.